You can use one half of your notebook as a shield.
Hi everyone.
Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to teach you how to play Clue Master Detective, which is a much harder version of Clue. With the inclusion of more suspects, more rooms, and more weapons, only a Master Detective can solve the bigger mystery. This is what you get. You get 2 6-sided dice, 8 metallic weapons, 10 playable tokens, a stack of cards that contains all of the suspects, locations, and weapons, a confidential folder, a stack of detective notebook checklist sheets, the instruction booklet, which also contains the history of Clue, and a giant trifold game board. Let's set up the game. The first thing you do is separate all 30 cards into 3 piles, so that one pile has just locations, another pile has just suspects, and then the other pile has just weapons. You're going to shuffle all 3 of the piles separately, keep them face down without looking at them. Then once they're all shuffled, you're going to draw the top card from each of the 3 piles, still not looking at them, and then you're going to place those cards into the case file envelope, or in this case, the confidential folder. Those 3 cards in this folder answers who done it, where was it, and with what. You're going to set this confidential folder off to the side, and while you're at it, you're going to take all 8 of the metallic weapons and set them aside as well. You will use them later. Once that's taken care of, you're going to shuffle all the remaining cards into a single deck, then deal all of the cards to all of the players, starting with the player on your left. Don't worry if some players have more cards than others. With the cards in your hand, since obviously they are not in the confidential folder, you will use the cards in your hand as clues to help with your investigation. Each player takes 1 detective notebook sheet from the pad and folds it in half going down the line here. By folding it in half, you can use one half of your notebook as a shield to prevent cheaters from peeking at your checklist. Also, if you want to, you can mark all the cards in your hand onto your checklist. This is optional though, because let's say what if a player happens to cheat and looks at your pad, but you didn't mark any of the cards in your hand onto the checklist. That cheater does not get away with it. The old saying goes, cheaters never win. Each of the tokens represents the suspects by their color. I will match the tokens with their respective suspects later on. Place all 10 of the tokens in the cloakroom. Each player will pick 1 token to play as, and any of the non-selected tokens remain in the cloakroom. Each player rolls both dice, highest roller goes first, and the turn order goes clockwise. Now there's something that you should know. There are 13 locations on the game board, but only 12 location cards. The only location that does not have a card is the cloakroom. This is because the cloakroom is considered as the start space, and thus a murder cannot happen there. Also, if you noticed that I don't really have the cloakroom positioned on screen well. This is because the game board is so massive and I can't get the whole thing in. I will show you the entirety of the game board with the camera in my hand later in the video. Let's talk about moving your token. There are 2 ways, dice rolls and secret passages. Let's go with dice rolls first. Let's say for example I rolled a 4. Depending on what you roll, you move that number of spaces on the game board. You can move left, right, up, and down, but you can't move diagonally. You also cannot move on the same square more than once on the same turn, so this is not allowed. 1, 2, 3, and 4. You also cannot move your piece on an occupied space with exact count. So, with a roll of 4, and let's say I want to go north, so I go 1, 2, 3, and 4, but this space is already occupied. If you come across a scenario like that, then leave your piece behind the occupied space and then you're done. Unless maybe I rolled something like a 5, then I can go 1, 2, 3, count this occupied space as a 4, and then 5. That's allowed. Then there are secret passages. There are 6 entrances, each one connecting to another, for a total of 3 secret passages. Each entrance is represented by a picture of an arrow. To use a secret passage, you must be in a location with one of the entrances at the start of your turn. If you met these conditions, and you wish to use that connecting passage, just let everyone know and then move your piece to the other end of the passage. To figure out which location you'll be arriving at, just simply read the text next to that entrance. So it'll say something like, secret passage to this location. You may also use a secret passage with your dice roll. So here's an example. I roll a 7 and my piece is right here. So I move 1, 2, the entrance to this location is right here because there's a door shown, plus there's also a gap within the walls. Then I'll be using the secret passage shown here and move my piece to the other end, so that makes space number 3. And once I arrive at the new location, I can either stop there, or with 4 moves left, I can exit the new location and finish my roll. Let's go over the general aspects of a location. You don't have to enter a location by the exact count of your dice roll. You may pass through a location on the same turn, and if you do so, count a location as 1 space. If you arrive at a location mid-roll, you may choose to go with a suggestion. More on suggestions in a little bit, but if you do that, you have to forfeit the rest of your roll. Also, you can't re-enter the same location on the same turn. And to relieve any confusion, doors are not spaces, even though the doors shown here are almost the same color as the yellow square block spaces. As soon as you surpass a door for one of the locations, you are now in the whole location. One of the many things that you'll be doing in this game is making suggestions. You'll be doing that to see what cards your opponents are holding. Of course, to do a suggestion, you have to be in a location. And remember, if you make a suggestion with any remaining moves from your dice roll, you have to give up those moves for that turn. And when you make a suggestion, whatever location you're in, you have to use that location in your suggestion. So allow me to make an example for my suggestion. I suggest it was Colonel Mustard in the billiard room with the candlestick. Of course, my piece is down here and I had to go with billiard room because that's where I am. Whatever weapon that you chose for your suggestion, take that weapon from the pile aside from the game board and place it in the same room or same location that you're in. So for my suggestion, I made the candlestick for a pick, so I'm going to take the candlestick and put it in the billiard room. In whatever suspect you chose, place the token according to the matching color and then place it in the same location. So for me, I chose Colonel Mustard, and everybody knows that he represents the color yellow, so I'll be taking the yellow token. It does not matter where that token is on the game board. You'll be taking that token and putting it in the same room from that suggestion. Before I proceed with proving a suggestion, here's some more tidbits on making suggestions. A location can hold as many tokens and weapons as it can hold with no limits. You may, if you want to, make a suggestion and then follow it up with an accusation on the same turn. More on accusations a little bit later. After you enter a location, you may only make one suggestion. If you want to make another, you have to wait until your next turn when you're in a different location, or if you want to use the same location, you have to wait until the turn after the next, because remember, you can't re-enter the same location on the same turn. So for me, as an example, I can leave the billiard room on the next turn like this, and then just dilly-dawdle out in the hallway like this. And then on my next turn when I roll again, I can re-enter the billiard room. You may make a suggestion that includes a weapon and or token that's already in the location that you are in. If you do need to move a weapon and or token into place, then leave them right there when you are done your suggestion. Do not put any weapons and or tokens back to where they originally were, just leave them right there when you're done. If a suggestion from one of your opponents has you move your token to a new location, then on your next turn, you can roll the dice and move out of the location, or you can use the new location for your suggestion right away. If you decide to use a suggestion in this way, then you can't roll the dice and move your token on that turn. And also, you can't forfeit your turn just to stay in one spot. So if you're in a location and you decide to not make a suggestion, you have to move. Once you've made your suggestion, start with the player on your left. If that player has one of the cards that you mentioned, they will let you peek at that card. Mark the clue on your detective notebook. If that same player has more than one card that you asked for, they get to pick which one that they will let you peek at. And if that player has none of the cards that you asked for, they don't show you anything. Either way, when that player is done, the next player in line going in clockwise order then takes their turn, you give them the same suggestion, and then you repeat the process. This continues until all of your opponents have gone through with your suggestion. And if that point, when everyone is done, that none of your opponents had any of the cards that you asked for, that is a really good time to make an accusation. I will go into details on accusations in just a little bit. Here's a really good tip when you make a suggestion. When you make one, you should name one or more of the clues from your own cards. This will lead to a three-way street. Number one, if you don't do this, and it just so happens that all three of your picks are revealed by your opponents, then everybody's going to know that those three cards or clues are not going to be in the confidential envelope, and they will immediately mark them on their detective notebook. So that is way too far from advantageous. Number two, this will help mislead your opponents into thinking that you're looking for certain clues when those clues are all already in your hand. And number three, you'll be doing it sniper style by going for less cards in your opponent's hands. This makes it likely that one of your opponents is not going to have more than one card in their hand, and as a result, they have to show you what they got. And here's a good tip for the detective notebook. Whenever you find a clue from one of your opponents, make sure that you write the initials of your opponent for that respective clue. That way, not only that you don't ever have to deal with that clue again, but if you're able to figure out all of the clues from one of your opponent's hands, you don't have to deal with that opponent anymore for the rest of the game. Marking initials is a really good tactic for a process of elimination. And how about this tactic in regards to tokens? If you see an opponent's token closing in on a location that might give them important information, you should enter a location on your turn, choose that respective token as part of your suggestion, and then have that token transported to your location so that you can pull them away from where they're going. Works best if you're on the opposite end of your target, but just remember, your opponents can use the same tactic on you. The details on accusations are coming up next, but you're probably wondering what this space is, the one that's in the design of a magnifying glass. This was shown a few times in the video. There are 9 of these total on the game board, and they're called snoop spaces. You may land on one of these snoop spaces as part of your move to snoop an opponent. To snoop an opponent, pick which player that you want to snoop. Then you're going to pick one of their concealed cards from their hand. Peek at it, mark the clue on your detective notebook, then give the card back to that player. If you still have any remaining moves left from your dice roll, then continue your move. And if your dice roll is actually big enough, you can snoop and enter a location on the same turn. After going through all the suggestions, the snooping, and the movements, at any time during your turn, if you think you solved the mystery, go ahead and make an accusation. However, you only get one chance. Unlike a suggestion, when you make an accusation, you may pick any location even if your token is not at that respective location. When you make an accusation, simply say that it was this suspect at this location with this weapon. You're then going to take the confidential folder, open it up, and remove all 3 cards from it. Look at all 3 cards and make sure that you don't let any of the players see what they are. If all 3 cards match your accusation, you win the game. Reveal all 3 of the cards to your opponents as proof. But if you only get 2 or less of the cards correct, place all 3 cards back in the envelope and don't tell any of the players what any of the cards are. At this point, you can no longer win the game. You can take no more turns and you can make no more accusations. You must continue to play by one thing. You must stick around to answer any suggestions made by your opponents. And your opponents can still move your token to other locations when they make their suggestions. Now that I've gotten most of Clue Master Detective out of the way, I'm going to make my own accusation. I'm going to say it's Sergeant Gray in the trophy room with the horseshoe. Wrong. There's Madame Rose, the dining room, and the knife. I make an awful detective. As promised, here is the giant trifold game board. There are 3 things that I like to take care of. First will be the location of the Snoop spaces. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, with these 2 right here being the very best spots. You could literally just move around here and farm for Snoop spaces because the manual actually does not say that you can only have 1 Snoop per turn, so it's a great way to build up some Snoops if you want to. They're about 7 spaces apart, which is the same for these 2 and these 2, except a couple of them are buried in corridors, so you can't really move freely around them. The second thing are the 13 locations. Let's just start with the cloakroom. It's the start space after all. There are 3 entrances, there, and there. Down here is the conservatory with only 1 entrance right there, plus has 1 of the 6 entrances to a secret passage. Pay no attention to this, just pretend that there's a wall here because you can't go out of bound. And the windows don't have a red wall. Those are insurpassable as well. The studio has 3 entrances, here, here, and here. The billiard room has 3 entrances, here, here, and here. The library has 1 just right here, plus 1 of the 6 entrances to a secret passage. You have the courtyard with quite a bit. Let's go to the left first. You have an entrance going through here, another one going down over here, plus these 2 doors. These are surpassable. And on the right, you can go through here and there, so it's like 6 entrances to the courtyard. The drawing room has only 1 entrance right here, plus 1 of the 6 entrances to a secret passage. The dining room has 3 entrances, here, here, and there. The kitchen has 1 entrance right there with 1 of the 6 entrances of a secret passage. The trophy room has 4 entrances, this one, and this one, but the 4th one connects with some extra spaces going into the carriage house. And pay no attention to this open door as well as the garage door. You can't go through there either. So it looks like I have... Nope, there's actually 2 more locations. It's on the other side. Up here near the courthouse, if you go further up here, you have the gazebo, only 1 way to go through there. And the same for the fountain. The only way to get in there is through there. Some areas look surpassable, but they're not. For example, this one should have some walls, so just pretend that there are. I've already mentioned earlier about the conservatory. And for the courtyard, just take a look at the hedges. That's your wall right there. And you can't go over that secret passage just by going across the hedge. You have to go around it from one of the other 2 ways. And finally, the 3 secret passages. The first one connects from the conservatory to the drawing room. The second one connects from the kitchen to the library, and then the third one needs some discussion. It goes from this stairway right here to this area outside the courtyard. What makes this secret passage a little bit unique compared to the other two is that they're not in locations. This one looks like it's in the cloakroom, but if you can see by the wall, it's not. It's like maybe it looks like a door that leads to a basement or something like that. So I'll just say this when you're playing. When you do want to take the secret passage, don't forget to take one move from your dice roll. Just simply land there and it'll take you to this spot. And all three of these little squares count as one space as well. So when you get the move, just move your space to one of these yellow ones. And that is how you play Clue Master Detective. From this point forward, you may feel free to continue watching the rest of this video for some extra filler. Let's start with the cards. Feel free to pause for each card if you want to read the flavor text. Let's start with the suspects. Colonel Mustard, Mrs. Peacock, Professor Plum, Miss Scarlet, Mr. Green, Mrs. White, Monsieur Brunette, Miss Peach, Sergeant Gray, and Madame Rose. Next up are the locations. Fountain, Courtyard, Trophy Room, Conservatory, Studio, Library, Kitchen, Dining Room, Drawing Room, Carriage House, Gazebo, Billiard Room, and now the weapons. Rope, Revolver, Horseshoe, Wrench, Knife, Candlestick, Lead Pipe, and Poison. The instruction booklet has 6 pages detailing the history of Clue. Go ahead and pause the video for each page if you want to read through it. Starting with a brief history of the world's favorite mystery game. Page 2, Why Clue? Page 3, Who's Who? Page 4, The Manner of Murders. Page 5, What's Behind the Clue game's popularity? And the 6th page doesn't have a title on top, but it does end with this. Let's solve a Clue Master Detective mystery. I mentioned earlier that each of the tokens represents the suspects by their respective color. Well, this part is where this comes in. So go ahead and pause for each of the suspects, starting with Colonel Mustard. Mrs. Peacock. There's a typo in this one. It's right there. There should be an extra S. But anyways, this is Professor Plum. Miss Scarlet. Mr. Green. Mrs. White. And perhaps the next 4 are ones you've never heard before. Monsieur Brunette. Miss Peach. Not Princess Peach from Super Mario, mind you. Sergeant Gray. And Madame Rose. That's gonna do it for this video. Once again, that is how you play Clue Master Detective. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe for more, and don't forget to check out my gaming channel, Markis P Gaming, for video game Let's Play content. I will see you later, but until then, like always, take care.